Welcome to the Millennial Body Image Project, where we dive into the unique and messy body image journey that continues to shape our generation.
We're here to flip the script on toxic wellness culture, challenge weight stigma, and tackle the intersectional forces that shape how we see our bodies and our health.
Because your body is not a problem to be fixed.
Hey friends, we are taking a little spring break this week because life has been crazy. So we wanted to share an exclusive bonus episode that went live on our Patreon a few weeks ago that we are calling Protein, Protein, Protein. Everybody's freaking out about protein, so let's dive into the hype to talk fact versus fiction and fear-mongering. So this is actually going to be part one of a two-part series discussing protein. And in this part, there will be no discussion at all of numbers. So if that is triggering for you in any way, not to worry. This was originally just going to be one episode, but Christina and I ended up recording this on 2 different days. And on the second day, we went for almost an hour. So instead of giving you like an hour and 15-minute episode, we figured we would break it up into 2 parts. So this first part is going to be kind of like an introductory discussion of what we've been seeing online and how and why people are freaking out about protein and our beginning kind of intro thoughts on that. And then the second part, this is going to be more of a deep dive into what does the research actually say? What is the baseline? We will be talking numbers and tracking in that episode, but I will be giving very specific timestamps of when that happens. So if that is triggering for you, you can just click on those timestamps and skip on right ahead. If you do want to access part 2, which we're calling How Much Protein Do You Actually Need, which is a deep dive into the research and more personalized protein recommendations for specific populations, check out the link in the description. But let's dive in to part 1 of Protein, Protein, Protein. You know what this makes me think of? You know that commercial for the paper towels that's like, hefty, hefty, hefty?
Protein, protein, protein. I totally get it. I see it.
We have to talk about this, especially on the heels of just talking about perimenopause, because this is one of the things that is being marketed towards millennial women. And I feel like every week I'm getting questions about protein in session.
Girl, every day. You know what's interesting though is I don't think it's like one of the things that's getting touted to everybody. I think it is the thing getting touted to everyone. Honestly, I was saying to Dana before we recorded, if y'all are confused, you're in good hands. Like, you're in good company. Because to be perfectly honest, I have my master's of science with a concentration in nutrition. And shit, you guys, I'm fucking confused too. It's like ridiculous because I know what I learned in school, right? Then we learn that as like we come out into real practice, we learn a little bit of like bitches be dieting, you know? And then now I'm at this place where I even wonder myself sometimes. I'm like, am I eating enough protein? And I'm like, girl, this is marketing infiltrating into your brain. You are an educated person in this field. Why are you getting so confused by this? And so if you are confused, I just want to say, you're supposed to be. That's it. I said
Well, I think the other thing that is tough about this is there is a very neutral nutrition angle to this. But
totally.
At the same time, there's a huge marketing angle and protein will be the non-diet answer to all of your problems. Because if you just make sure that you get enough protein, then your hormones and your PCOS are going to be in check and you don't have to try to lose weight because it's going to do it on its own as long as you eat enough protein. And there's so many other angles to that. And I swear I hear this every single week from clients, especially when I'm working with clients with PCOS or fertility issues or anything hormone related, right? It's like, Dana, the PCOS girlies are out of control on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and they're all eating like 175 grams of protein a day. Am I supposed to be eating that much? These teeny tiny little white, little blonde influencers who have PCOS, they're like, oh, here's how I eat 75 grams of protein at each meal. I'm like, girl, shut up.
I know.
First of all, there's no way that your body is digesting that much protein at one time because it's not possible.
I'm also wondering too, is anyone talking about the impact on the kidneys? Because if you have too much protein, it's not good for your kidney function. Or do we not care? Do they not care?
But Christina, they don't know.
I
They don't know.
That's another thing too, is if it's overwhelming and confusing, and I'm learning and tracking what it is that's okay, what part of this is actually nutrition science, what part of this is actually dieting information, and trying to filter that out. That it's okay that you're confused because of course you're going to be confused. You don't have any education around this. And so to me, and if you're confused and you don't have education around it, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, I can bet my bottom dollar that the person who's telling you how many grams of protein are in their cooking video has no idea what they're supposed to be eating or how much they're supposed to be eating. More than likely, they have just heard from someone else, this is how much it's just like playing a game of, what's that game? Or the
Telephone.
phone? Telephone.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And everyone's now next thing, it's 3,000 grams of protein we need to be eating in a day.
Yeah. You know how we talk about the nutrition jungle? Protein is its own Amazon rainforest. It has its own nutrition jungle going on because the other confusing thing about protein is everywhere you go, you will get a different answer of how much protein you need to be eating because even in the research. But this is what's confusing. Your protein needs will vary based on your life circumstances. That means the stage of life that you are in. It also varies based on not only your activity level, but the type of activity that you're doing. If you're sick, if you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding, if you're an active person, if you have an injury, all of these different ifs will change your protein recommendation. And that is where a lot of people will really get lost in the sauce because then they're like, oh, do I have to change my protein? Well, we've lost the plot at this point because
I agree. I'm just laughing about the saying. I like it.
Well, it's true because and this goes for anybody, you, me, all the people, is every single time you open social media or you go to the grocery store or you're hearing from a person down the street, they're like, oh, I do this for protein or I do this for protein. Protein is the thing in the nutrition world right now. That is the confusing thing is you hear different recommendations everywhere. And even if you just start with the government's dietary guidelines, which is recommended to prevent deficiency for an average sedentary adult, there are even people who will say, no, you actually don't even need to eat that much protein. Primarily that's coming from vegans. But, we just have to go into this with
have
eyes.
Their own agenda. We have to remember that too.
Well, exactly. That's what I was going to say is you have to think about what is the source that I'm getting this from and what is the bias of the education of that person where you're getting that information from. And also, are they a person who's like, this worked for me, therefore it should work for everybody, because in that case, just mute them and walk the other way.
Tread lightly, guys. Yeah, I have found in general the education that we got around the protein amount and the percentages that we learn for macros and stuff, I find to be generally on the lower side overall in a lot of ways. And most people need actually a lot more than what the recommended thing is. And I always think of that as there's different layers, right? There's the amount that your body needs for basic organ function. And then there's the amount that you need to be more than that. And then there's the amount that your body needs based off of various different factors. Like you were saying, your activity level, where you are in your stage of life, whether or not you're pregnant, all the things that you were saying all influence what that looks like. And I got to tell you, how are you supposed to keep track of it? Because what you needed when you were training for a marathon is very different than what you need for when you're hitting up your yoga class. It's very, very different. Your needs vary every single day. The same way that I would say is if you hyper-focus on any one nutrient, you're not getting, I don't believe, the mixture of all of them that we really ultimately need.
Yeah, and there's the other layer of could be construed as very diety and has been construed as very diety in the past is the you are what you eat. No, it's actually you are what you absorb. The non-diet piece of this is you could be eating crazy amounts of protein. But if you're pooping your pants every day, it's not doing anything for you. Or the more likely option is if you are constipated and you're eating too much protein, it's a vicious cycle, my friend. If you're eating too much protein, it's going to be constipating, especially depending on the type of protein, unless you're lactose intolerant and you're taking whey protein, in which case you're going to have the opposite issues. So there's so much nuance that goes into this. And then Christina was mentioning before, even when you dive into the research, if you look into the research for people that have X health condition, but then you look into the research from like the American Journal of Sports Nutrition or something like that. And then you further look into, okay, what about for weight training athletes? And what about for Olympic athletes? And what about for this and this and this? And this is something that I see a lot too, is you and I, meaning you and Christina and me and the listener and all the people, we are not Olympic athletes. We don't need to be training like Olympic athletes. We don't need to be eating like Olympic athletes, okay? Even when I interviewed Jordan De La Cruz on the podcast, who is literally an Olympian weightlifter, okay? I highly doubt that she is eating 200 grams of protein a day, and she's literally an Olympic weightlifter, okay? And if there was anybody who is going to eat that much protein, that would be the person who would probably need to be eating that much protein. Seriously. If there's anyone that needs to eat that much, right? So if and when you are confused, of course you are, because it is confusing, right? Mm-hmm. The best way to figure out how much protein you need is to work with somebody, right? Because while we're going to go into the research and like a couple of the things that are, I would say, the most focused and zeroed in, you can be at like a very basic level. There's even nuance to that, right? Because we're talking to many, many, many of you, and there's no one answer that we can give you. And so the best answer that we could give is you need to work with someone individually who's not pushing the protein agenda.
Yeah, and I think also too, like I understand people's desire for wanting to get some guidance, right? Because
100%.
Right? Like it makes a lot of sense when you're thinking like, well, I am trying to be really thoughtful about how I'm building my plates and I want to make sure that I'm getting enough nutrients. I think about this a lot with my eating disorder clients too. Okay, I want to make sure that we're getting everything that we need now. And it's like, how do we decide how much we need and for how long do we need it? And I think it's really important. And I understand people's desire to want to get some information. I think we just need to take a step back and remember that, hey, when we obsess over any one thing, then we're leaving out other things. And I think like most of the time, you don't need to be obsessing about this just because TikTok is.
I think it's important to know your limit of what amount of information is triggering for you, because this differs for every person. Like we might be able to give a recommendation to someone and be like, if you have no idea how much protein you're eating, it may be helpful to track your protein sources for a day or two in order to get a ballpark number. Is that actually going to be accurate? Probably not, but it will be inside the ballpark, right? That may be helpful for one person, and that may be extremely triggering for many people.
6 clients of mine where that would be just absolutely horrible.
Exactly. And so that's why it's really important for you as a person who's trying to gather information to see what type of information is triggering for you. And that's why it's also really important for you to work with someone who can meet you where you are and help you figure out how much information is too much. What is the minimum amount of information that's going to be helpful? And what is pushing the envelope a little bit too much? Because what we don't ever want to do as practitioners is to put you in a place where, one, you feel like you're uncomfortable, and two, you feel like you're letting somebody down because you weren't able to do the thing because it's triggering for you. That's not letting us down at all. That means we actually let you down because we gave you too much information or advice that wasn't helpful for you. We just need to roll it back, do some nervous system regulation, as Christina was talking about before we started recording today, and figure out what is the middle ground here.
Yeah, I think like 100%. I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to this conversation is let's pump the brakes, guys. Let's pump the brakes, take a deep breath, and then look at the facts here and figure out what exactly it is that you personally need and get support around what that looks like for varying different things.
And like we mentioned in the intro, this will be continued in part 2. If you're interested in listening to the continuation of this episode over on Patreon, you can click the link in the description. And we'll see you next week with another new episode.